time for Nerdgasm.
Hey, what's up, Nerdgasm fans? Jerry here, aka Barnacules. Now, if you guys follow me on my social networks, you know over the last couple of weeks, I've been getting into something called cryptocurrency. Now, the most common cryptocurrency that everybody seems to know and love is Bitcoin. It's definitely the most popular currency out there. So the majority of this video, that's what we're gonna be focusing on, but we may also talk about some of the altcoins. Now, this whole thing started with this guy right here. This is a 3D printed Bitcoin that I made in ColorFab bronze fill material, and the purpose of that video was just to show how to print and polish a coin. I chose Bitcoin because I thought it'd be kind of cool. I wasn't actually that into cryptocurrency. Well, lo and behold, I got a lot of messages from you guys after producing that video asking me about cryptocurrency, and I was not equipped to answer your questions. Well, luckily, a company named FinalHash came along, and they sent me an email saying they really loved the video and they were wondering if I was interested in real cryptocurrency. And I told them, yeah, actually, I've been getting a lot of requests for it and everything. I'd love to know more. Well, after we talked for a while, they decided they want to send me a whole bunch of hardware to play around with. I have a couple things here, a Spawn Dually SP20, an Antminer S3 Plus, and a couple of the little guys. And these are all ASIC-based miners, and we're going to talk about those during the video. But basically, I'm going to show you guys everything that I've learned over the last couple of weeks if you want to get up in your own Bitcoin mining operation, or if you want to investigate cryptocurrency, or if you're just curious. But I do want to warn each and every one of you that throughout my 2 weeks, I noticed a lot of volatility in cryptocurrency. So you need to be aware of that if you get started in this and you buy equipment and you try to build your own mine, there is a chance you may never get your investment back. So make sure you do your research, you make wise decisions, and don't lose your house.
Because your wife might make you sleep on the couch if you do that.
All right, guys, enjoy the video. Okay, cryptocurrency is a virtual currency that's both generated and circulated online exclusively. There is nothing backing the currency in the physical world like chunks of gold or bars of silver or any other precious metal. The value of the currency comes basically from its supply, its demand, and its popularity. Now, the cool thing about cryptocurrencies is they're decentralized, meaning that there is no centralized governing body. You don't have a bank that controls the money. You don't have a government that controls the money. You don't have a huge corporation that controls the money. The bank is the collective involvement of everybody in the Bitcoin network. Now, there are thousands of these things in the network called nodes, and each one of these nodes basically holds a ledger that keeps track of every single Bitcoin transaction that's ever happened from the moment a Bitcoin was generated all the way out to the last participation it had in a transaction. Now, the cool thing is anybody can create a node. Even you could create a node, and I have a link down in the video description if you're feeling brave enough. But I will warn you that the Bitcoin transactions, because everyone is tracked over time, the ledger's about 25 gigabytes right now, and it's only getting bigger. So I wouldn't recommend creating a node unless you have a lot of bandwidth and a lot of hard drive space. But needless to say, there are thousands and thousands of nodes spread out across the entire world. I actually have a cool link down in the video description that'll show you the current distribution of nodes on the network. And it's really cool because the way the currency works is the more nodes you have, the more honest and trustworthy the network is. There's many other elements to that, but that's a good foundation. Now, Bitcoin is also one of the most stable cryptocurrencies. The value fluctuates pretty dramatically at times, but for the most part, it stays pretty stable by comparison. And that's largely because of its adoption. If you go around the world, you can actually see little stickers on buildings that say Bitcoin accepted here. If you go to Expedia or Newegg or even Microsoft now, you can do digital transactions online using Bitcoin for purchases. Now, that says a lot for the currency because it's stabilized to the point where big corporations are actually accepting it. Before that, it was generally used for transactions between people, not big companies. So this is a great indication that the currency is going to be around for a very long time. Now, you could imagine with Bitcoin being so successful that there were a lot of other, I'm going to say copycats that came out, and there's literally thousands of them. There's thousands of cryptocurrencies now if you actually go out and do your research. And to be honest, I'm working on my own right now. Now, as you might imagine, since Bitcoin became so popular and it gained so much momentum, everybody wanted lightning to strike twice, so everybody and their brother went out and created something called an altcoin. And that's just what it is, an alternative coin. They basically took the Bitcoin algorithm, tweaked it, and created a unique coin. And in some cases, they even changed the entire encryption algorithm. But I think it's safe to say that a lot of these coins are actually just garbage coins. They're not worth anything. But there are a couple that managed to pull themselves up and become successful. And a lot of these you might know, like Litecoin, you got Dogecoin, you got Darkcoin, and you got
Titcoin.
Yeah, I said Titcoin. But the real heroes of the Bitcoin network are the miners. These are the people that dedicate their CPU cycles to the network for the purpose of verifying transactions and making sure that everything that's happening on the Bitcoin network is legitimate. Now, it's actually a brilliant model. Basically, what happens is the Bitcoin network is arranged in such a way that there's a lottery that occurs every 10 minutes. Anytime people are making transactions across the internet, basically saying, I want to send Bitcoins to somebody else, they want to send Bitcoins to somebody else, all those transactions for roughly a 10-minute period go into something called a block. Now, what happens is that block needs to be verified by somebody, but you don't want it verified by a single party because that person could be corrupt. So the idea is they hold a lottery, and this lottery is they tell everybody out on the internet, whoever comes up with the magic number first gets the privilege of verifying this block and adding it to the official ledger. So the way the system works is it has a difficulty rating. Depending on how many people or how much processing power there is on the network, so how many people are mining, what equipment they're using, it basically measures the entire processing power of the network and then determines a number that will take approximately 10 minutes to come up with. And when I say 10 minutes to come up with, I say with the combined power of the entire network. So what that means is the more people that are mining and the faster equipment that comes on the network, the harder it is for you or me to actually find the magic number. So the solution to this as time went on was to create something called pools. Now, I use BitcoinAffiliateNetwork.com, and I have a link down in the video description. And they're basically a pool. So what I do is I take all my Bitcoin mining equipment and I connect it to their pool and say, go mine on a pool. And what this does is you and thousands and thousands and thousands of other people's mining equipment all gets pooled together into one resource that's trying to solve that magic number on the network. So there is a much higher odd of you guys solving it, and then whoever solves it, they basically split up the reward for solving it among all the people in the pool. Now, they don't divvy it up evenly. They divvy it up based on a percentage of power that you offered to the pool. So if you had a bunch of slow equipment attached, you might get a couple cents. If you have a lot of fast equipment attached, you might get a couple dollars. And the way that Bitcoin keeps the network stimulated so that people like you and I want to dedicate our power to it is through this reward system. And right now it's at 25 Bitcoins. So if you find that magic number all by yourself doing something called solo mining, basically you're not in a pool, you're just like, screw it, I'm going to play the lottery and just put my machine straight out there. If you hit that magic number before anybody else, you get 25 Bitcoins. Well, Bitcoin's at about $310, give or take, when I'm making this video. That's a lot of scratch. But the odds of you finding that number, it may take you 10 years, it may take you 20 years. You might end up burning more power and spending more on equipment than you ever make off those 25 Bitcoins. So the smarter move is to mine in a pool, and that way you're guaranteed to have a semi-regular income based on the results of everybody sharing the profits. Now, another problem that you run into with the Bitcoin network, and we talked about this a little bit, is the difficulty. And the difficulty is when too many people come onto the network and they're mining. So I shouldn't say too many. I should say when more people come onto the network and they get faster and faster and faster equipment, the problem is that they have to raise the difficulty of finding that magic number so that it still takes about 10 minutes to find, because they only want to give out 25 new Bitcoins on the network approximately every 10 minutes and only 6 times an hour. Well, that means every time somebody upgrades their giant Bitcoin mining to the next generation of hardware, if we don't upgrade to the next generation of hardware, our odds significantly drop at finding a coin, and that affects our ability to be profitable at it. So Bitcoin kind of fueled a little bit of an arms race when it comes to hashing technology, because everybody used to just hash on CPUs. And on a CPU, you'd get a couple kilohash per second, and that was considered good because everybody on the network was using CPUs. The difficulty was really low. So that magic lottery number didn't have as many freaking numbers in it. It was easier for you to just randomly hit on. But then people started busting out GPUs because they found out the graphics cards could process this equation a lot faster than CPUs. So then everybody jumped on the GPUs, and they were processing so much faster than the CPU guys that the CPU guys were getting pushed out. So then the CPU guys were like, oh God, we better upgrade to GPUs. So then the GPU guys were like, oh wow, what's the new latest and greatest technology? All right, anyways, this war goes on for a little while, and here's where we're at today. These guys right here, the Antminer S3 right here, it's called an ASIC system. That stands for Application Specific Integrated Circuit. These guys are designed to basically do one thing. It's a chip designed to just run the SHA-256 hashing algorithm. That's it. Now this guy up here, this little Zeus Miner, this is actually a script encryption, so this wouldn't even work for Bitcoin. So we'll put that aside. This little grid seed guy, he can do both Bitcoin, the SHA-256, and the script, except for he's not very effective because he's just really slow. But just to give you a comparison, this little itty bitty cheap grid seed here is as fast as most graphics cards were at one point. I mean, this little guy right here was outpacing graphics cards with a little DC voltage input and a USB. Now, this guy right here is an Antminer S3. He can process at about 400 to 500 gigahash per second. Just to give you an idea, that's about 500 times faster than a top-end GPU. We're talking like an R9 290. This thing will kick its ass by 500 times because it's application specific. This thing only does one thing. It hashes numbers. That's it. It's just a giant calculator. But if you're really hardcore, then they got this guy. This is the Sponduli SP20. Now this guy will consume up to about 1100 watts of electricity, and he can generate 1.7 terahash a second. That's over 3 times faster than the Antminer. So that's 1,700 times faster. Could you imagine that? Having a computer with 1,700 GPUs all over the place, it would fill a room, it would eat enough electricity to make a power plant dim. It just wouldn't work. But this can do it in 1,100 watts. So you can see the equipment gets more efficient and faster each generation. So when you're getting into Bitcoin mining, you have to think about profitability. And in order for you to make any kind of a profit, you have to be on ASIC hardware. Basically, GPUs won't cut it anymore. Now, if you do have a GPU mining rig stuffed away in your closet somewhere, pull it back out and blow the dust off it. There's a new coin coming out called Zifter coin. I have a link down in the video description, and that is a coin that will only be able to mine via GPU. ASICs can't mine it. So that would be a really good option to get some use out of that hardware. But if you want to mine for Bitcoin specifically, you need high-end ASIC hardware. If you guys would like to get your own Antminer or Sponduli SP20, I have links down in the video description. But what you want to do before you go and buy one of these units is you have to think about a couple things. First of all, profitability. There's a lot of factors in there. What is the difficulty of the network? Basically, how much processing power is on the network right now, making it difficult to find that magic number? You have to factor that in, because the more people that are mining, even on a pool, the more people that are mining, that's the more way you got to split that 25 Bitcoins when you find that number every 10 minutes. And so you might make less money than you're putting power into these, and that's not a good thing. Now, just to give you an example from my perspective, when I ran the math on mine, between these two guys right here, I hit about a little over 2 terahash a second. So between the Antminer and the Sponduli SP20 running full tilt. Now the total power consumption is around 1,450 kilowatts for both pieces of equipment. The Sponduli, he pulls about 1,100. This guy pulls about 300 to 400, depending on the load. So you have to factor the electricity cost. Where I live, it's about 10 cents per kilowatt. To run these two units, I'm looking at about $3 a day in power. That's a significant amount of money to be paying out for power. But at the current Bitcoin price and the current difficulty of the network, I stand to make about $9 to $10 a day. Once you take the $3 away from that for electricity, you're actually left with $5 to $6. That's not too bad. But remember, the price of Bitcoin is always fluctuating and the difficulty of the network is always fluctuating. So as long as the difficulty is going down, these will remain profitable or it stays still. But if the difficulty continues to go up and keeps rising, at some point, these are not going to generate enough money to pay for the electricity they use. So there's a couple calculators online. I have a link down in the video description. You go to the calculator, enter your power per kilowatt, what the current difficulty of the Bitcoin network is, what the current price of Bitcoin is, and it'll actually factor it out for you and show you like what your power consumption is and what your profitability is. But also keep in mind that can change radically over time, so it is a risk. Now, another thing you have to factor in when running equipment like this is heat. The Antminer doesn't generate that much heat. I had it running up here in the Nerd Cave, and it doesn't consume a lot of power. But the Sponduli SP20 at 1.7 terahash and 1100 watts, it's basically like a space heater. I ran it in my garage. It's very, very noisy, and it pumps out air like a heater. It literally heated my uninsulated garage in the dead of winter to 80 degrees. So you would only want to run this bad boy if you were in a well-ventilated area. Now, if you happen to live in an area where power is like 2 or 3 cents per kilowatt, you could actually make a pretty good killing with these. Now, if you live on the East Coast where power is like 30 plus cents a kilowatt, yeah, you're not going to make any money with these. Now, some other alternative methods are cloud mining. There's a lot of cloud mining places out there, and I'm actually planning to do a whole new video. The next Bitcoin video will be primarily on cloud mining. And this is where you go and pay a service where they have very, very cheap power and very, very cheap equipment, and you pay to rent their equipment to mine on. And that's an alternative if you want to get into Bitcoin mining, but you don't want to have to worry about, huge investments up front and buying the equipment. Now, granted, it's obviously not going to be as profitable in the beginning because they're going to need a cut of your profits. But at the same time, it's a safer bet. So it all depends on what you're comfortable with. And another cool thing is a lot of the other coins that are out there use the same SHA-256 algorithm. So these Bitcoin miners down here, they just crunch SHA-256. So as long as you're on a coin that supports that, you can use that hardware to mine any number of those coins. And they also have pools out there that you can actually let them pick which coins they're going to use your processing power in, and then they will decide how to distribute all that hashing power for you to maximize your profits. So there's a lot of options out there. All the pools work differently. Bitcoin Affiliate Network is what I use though, and I would recommend it. It works pretty good. And another thing is they pay 4% over what you find. So whatever the Bitcoin reward is for that block that gets divvied out, they add another 4% on top of it. Another cool thing about this hardware is these big ASICs right here, they're plug and play. You basically plug RJ45 network cable into them. I have them connected through a wireless router in my garage, and you literally connect to them through the web browser. You can go through all the pages, you can see how it's doing, you can set up the pools, you can set up failover pools, so if one pool goes offline, it'll automatically jump on another pool so that you're not losing any mining cycles. You can even tweak the power, how much power they're consuming, how fast they're going. They are very, very configurable, easy to set up, and just let them go. They don't require a lot of maintenance. They don't have to be tied to your computer, so if your computer hangs or locks up, you lose them. No, they are very, very stable, and they just sit there and do their job, which is nice. Now, the little guys like these, I call these like the little lottery machines, right? I mean, even if you were mining on a pool, you wouldn't make... You really wouldn't make a profit at all off these. So these little guys, since they use so little power and everything, they're fun just to hook up and just solo mine with, because then you just got that lottery chance of 1 in a million of hitting it, and if you do, you get 25 Bitcoins. If you don't, you're not out a whole bunch, so that's kind of fun. Okay, so now you kind of know how Bitcoin works, you know how the network works, you know how the mining aspect of it works. Now you got to worry about where to store your money, and for that you have something called a Bitcoin wallet. Now, I use a service called Coinbase.com to create an online wallet, but if you want, you can even create a wallet locally on your computer using just software. Basically, all a wallet is a hash number that's generated at random that's assigned to you, and then there's something called a private key and a public key that are given to you. That private key is kept secret at all times because that private key is needed to sign any transaction moving coins out of your wallet somewhere else. The reason for that is obvious. If anybody had that password, they could just take coins out of your account. But the nice thing is to put coins into your wallet, they don't need that private key. So you can give your public address to anybody. You can give your wallet address to your friend and say, hey, send me some Bitcoin, and he can send you Bitcoin through there. He doesn't need anything. But if you want to send him Bitcoin, you need that private key to sign it. Now, when you use a service like Coinbase.com, you don't have to worry about the private key because they take care of everything with the username and password and everything on the back end, which is really nice. And I've been using them for a couple of weeks, and they've been reliable. I've also sold Bitcoins and had money transmitted into my account, and it's been really good. So if you guys want to create an account on Coinbase, I have a link down in the video description. And if you use it, it actually helps out the channel. But you want to create a Coinbase account, and then you want to get it verified. And the way you get it verified is by putting in your account information so they can submit a transaction via wire transfer to your bank account, like your checking account, and then you verify the transaction amounts, and that way they know that that account belongs to you. Then you can sell your Bitcoins at any time for market value and have that real money transferred into your account, which is really cool. Or you can spend your Bitcoins online on services like Expedia and stuff, or you can even sell your Bitcoins to buy other coins, and vice versa. Now, it's really important that you store both your public, your wallet address, and your private key somewhere safe. Even if you have to print it on a piece of paper and put it in your safe, never lose that private key, because without that private key, you can never transact any coins out of your wallet somewhere else, which means you can't sell them, you can't use them to buy for goods. It's very important you store that. And I actually have a little NFC Bitcoin wallet right here. So it's near field communication. I'm still playing around with it to figure out how it all works, but you're supposed to be able to touch your phone to it and actually transact the little number off there so you can store your private key on there and never lose it. And then you can put this in a safe deposit box or something like that. And that way you never have a problem. If your house burns down, you don't lose your hard drive, you don't lose all your coins. Now, one of the upsides to using a service like Coinbase is that they store your private key and then protect it with a username and password, and if you want, two-stage authentication, which is really nice. And then you don't have to worry about losing anything because their system's all backed up. Also, I just wanted to note that your Bitcoin wallet, your coins aren't physically stored in like an account or in a wallet. The way it works is that number that you get in that private key is what's used to sign the transaction that goes into the Bitcoin log. So anytime you go to make a transaction or check your Bitcoin account, it's actually going back and tracing that Bitcoin's origin back through the transactions to figure out like who owns it. And as long as you're the last transaction in the chain that owns that coin, it'll be associated with that number in your account. So it's kind of weird. You don't just have like a box that's full of your coin. You have a number that's associated with N number of coins in the network that belong to you. And so that's how they know what coins belong to you. And then when you transact it to somebody else, it basically adds another transaction after that one saying that the coin has now changed ownership from this person to this person. Also, I would like to say that when I'm saying coin, I'm not talking about whole numbers. You can transfer coins in fractions, like thousands, tens of thousands of a single Bitcoin you can transmit. So you can spend a cent if you want to. Okay, so now that you know about the Bitcoin, the mining, and you have the wallet, here's what you need to do if you want to get started. You want to go out to Coinbase, create your account first, get it verified. Then you want to go out to Bitcoin Affiliate Network, which I have all these links down in the description as well as steps so that you can just do them. Then once you create that in your pool, you want to do something called create a worker. You basically go into your account on Bitcoin Affiliate Network and create a worker, and this is what you associate your mining equipment with. Then after you do that, you want to go to the Bitcoin Affiliate Network help page, and it'll actually show you the URL to use for the pool, and that's where you enter in for the pool in the web interface of your mining equipment. And your mining equipment will ultimately do work through that worker on the pool, and that's how the pool knows what work you own. And then once you get all your equipment going, you can actually monitor right on the page, the front page of Bitcoin Affiliate Network. You can see how many terahash or gigahash or megahash you're processing on the network. And they will also send you email updates every time they pay out, about every 2 hours, which is kind of nice. And then you go into your settings and you configure your payout wallet address to the wallet address Coinbase gave you when you signed up. So when you sign up to Coinbase, you get your wallet, and then you take your wallet and you give it to Bitcoin Affiliate Network so they know where to send the coins. Once you've done this, then what happens is your mining equipment mines on the pool. Every 2 hours, the pool pays out to that address, and then your Coinbase account just starts showing money. It's that easy. And then once it shows up, if you want to sell it, you just go click on the sell button. Now, you have to be a confirmed account to sell, but you click on the sell button, you say how much you want to sell, and then it takes a couple of days and it's in your checking account. It works really well. Also, the last thing that I want to mention in this process is if you decide instead of selling your Bitcoins, you want to trade them for other coins, or you decide you want to mine other coins like Litecoin and Dogecoin, and then you want to use those coins to buy Bitcoins, you can use a site called Cryptsy.com. And it's basically an exchange where you can go in and actually exchange your coin for other coin without actually converting it to money first. And I think that that's actually a really cool thing also. All right, guys, now to wrap up this video, the last thing I want to talk about is just to reiterate the pros and cons of Bitcoin mining. First of all, you have the expense of the equipment to think about. You have to buy the ASIC miners, and then you also have to buy power supplies for them. So you have to factor in the cost of an ATX power supply that can support it. So like for instance, with the Spawn Dually, you got to buy that. Then you got to buy, at least an 1100 watt capable power supply. I'd recommend something higher, 12 or 1300 watt power supply. So that's going to be fairly spendy. Then once you calculate that, you need to figure out how much is your power where you live per kilowatt. And also check to make sure that they don't ramp up the cost of power if you go over a certain amount of kilowatts. Because if you're not locked in at that kilowatt rate, you might find out that you consume so much power that month that they put you up into a whole different bracket. So make sure your power is cheap. As long as your power is 10 cents or cheaper a kilowatt, you're probably going to be profitable for the time being, but there's no guarantee in the future, which leads me to the difficulty of the network. You have no control, and you can't predict how many new miners are going to come onto the network, and you can't predict when newer, better, faster hardware is going to come out, and when huge mines around the world are going to upgrade their hardware to the new hardware, and that's going to raise the difficulty of the network so that they can find the number faster, but then that's going to render your equipment much lower, and even if you're mining in a pool, you're going to make less of a profit. So you have to consider that while you're doing it too. So there are a lot of variables here, but the one thing I really do like about this, even just from a hobbyist perspective, is I like the fact that when I'm running my miners, whether I'm making a profit or not, I'm actually participating in a free global currency that's not controlled by any government, that's not controlled by any bank, and that just makes me feel cool. That has a definite nerd factor to it. I also like the fact that somebody created a network that's so heavily built on top of encryption. It's incredibly secure for a peer-to-peer network. Is it absolutely invulnerable? No, there are cases where there are certain attacks that can be made that are semi-successful. But the amount of power required to make those attacks, if you think about it, are actually, they could have used that power to go actually be honest on the network and make more money. But largely overall, the network is very secure. Now, some other minor concerns that I have too after all the research that I've done is that there is a huge distribution of nodes across the network. But if the currency loses momentum and those nodes decide to shut down and there's fewer and fewer nodes, that's going to make the network easier to be taken over. I don't think that's going to ever happen because I see a lot more nodes coming online than going down, but realize that as more transactions occur, that transaction log is going to get bigger, which means it's going to be harder for the nodes to store because they need more hard drive space. And if transactions start going up at a huge amount of magnitude, especially since Bitcoin's being so heavily adopted, the pressure on those nodes is actually going to go up. But guys, just be careful. Make sure you calculate your risks if you're going to get involved in this. The thing is, there are so many people mining in so many countries that have very, very cheap power that it's incredibly hard to be profitable unless you have access to that same incredibly cheap power. And plus, remember, in a house, you only got so much electricity. I mean, my circuits can only handle about one SP20, maybe two each on my 20 amp circuits. So I can't run a lot of these, and I do need to run them in my garage. I can't just run them in rooms of the house because they are very noisy. The Spondulias, the amp miner's not noisy. I could run 2 or 3 of those in every room of my house. But in order to be profitable at a large scale, like if you wanted to make an income out of it, you really would need a large farm operation, or you would have to have a huge cloud mining operation. And those are things that I'm going to investigate and I'm going to talk more about in the future. But right now, guys, I hope I gave you enough information. I hope this video didn't go like too long or overwhelm you. It's really, really hard to try to say this stuff in a way that everybody's going to understand it because the Bitcoin network runs really, really deep. It is really, really technical how it works. And I didn't want to create a 5-hour video on how the Bitcoin network works fundamentally. But I think I got the main points out, and hopefully you guys really, really enjoyed this video. And I'm sorry for the incredibly long wait for me to make this. It was one of those things where it's like, I just wanted to make sure that I had a very firm grasp on everything I was doing before I even attempted this video. And I hope that you guys are better off for it. All right, guys, until next time. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please take a moment and subscribe to my channel. It helps me a lot. Also come over to Twitter. I'm at Barnacules. I'm a real social guy. Also, if you have a couple of minutes, check out some of these many other videos. I made them myself.